34 miles per hour, you are very unlikely to be sent on a speed awareness course or to get 3 points and a fine. He's saying that should end and that speed limits should be absolute. So if you're doing 31 miles an hour and you've got nothing on your licence, it'll be a speed awareness course. If you have something on your licence, you'll be fined for doing 31 miles an hour. What he didn't talk about, but what I also want to bring in to this discussion about our roads and driving tonight, and I know our roads get busier and busier and busier, but there are many times when our motorways are perfectly passable. We have, without doubt, the best engineered and maintained motorways in the world, and I really do believe that. I think that the speed limit of 70 is completely and hopelessly outdated, but I also think that whether you should be stopped and fined or sent on a speed awareness course should also have something to do with discretion. What's the weather like? You know, is it raining hard? Is the traffic heavy? Because frankly, you know, when I got stopped doing 36 miles an hour at 1:43 in the morning, going into a Buckinghamshire village and got my 3 points, I thought, frankly, it was ludicrous at that time of the day. I was done by a speed camera, but I do think discretion, particularly on our motorways, discretion makes sense. And yet, we have the police taking us in this direction. So I'm going to ask you, would you be in favour of penalising motorists who were caught going 1 mile an hour above the speed limit? And perhaps you think, yes, the law should be absolute, in which case you can call on 0345 6060 973, or maybe you think if we were to really enforce 30 like that, most drivers would go around obsessed with the speedo and not looking at the road ahead, and that'd be even more dangerous, in which case text to 84850. Or maybe like me, you think all our speed limits need a complete and utter rethink, in which case tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, watch us on Facebook, comment there too, and I want a little bit of expert help, I think, to get me through this. And I'm going to go to Rebecca Ashton, and she's head of driver behaviour and they used to be called the Institute of Advanced Motorists, but it's now called Road Smart. Rebecca, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel.
So, we know that speed, and we saw 3 young boys killed in South London over the course of last weekend by a completely out-of-control car. So we know speed and bad driving are a dangerous combination, but how do you respond? How do you respond to Chief Constable Bangham saying that if you're done doing 31 miles per hour, something should happen to you?
Well, I think there's a couple of things we need to think about. Drivers certainly want more enforcement, particularly of drink and drug driving, careless driving, mobile phone use, and so therefore we want to see more traffic police out doing that. But the police, we need to have a more consistent approach across the whole of England, because at the moment we haven't got consistency. So we need consistency to be able to do that. The limit is the limit, but because of the lack of constituency in sort of areas, there are these urban myths that appear between people. So I think we really need to look at the consistency approach, first of all, seeing the police out on the road, and then we also need to think about the very small things, for example, the detection equipment. I understand that at the moment there is, I think it can detect up to 2 miles an hour leeway. Yep. So I think we need to think about that as well, if we're going to be saying that, 30 is 30 and that's it.
Rebecca, give me a thought too on motorway speed limits.
Well, at the moment we have a 70 mile an hour limit, as you know. We have more and more traffic on the roads. I think at IM Road Smart we're open to the possibility of changing that, but what we don't want to see is that perhaps a speed limit going up and being changed and then people breaking that. So I think if we're going to do anything with the speed limits, we have to be quite stringent on what we're going to do with regard to enforcement.
But if a law becomes a reasonable law, isn't there more chance people might actually obey it? Because my observation, Rebecca, is that in good conditions on our motorways, most people think the 70 mile an hour speed limit is hopelessly out of date and they simply ignore it.
Well, I mean, I would like to think that people understand the 70 limit and think about the stopping distance. I drive on motorways, probably like you, quite frequently, and people still drive too close to each other. They don't think about the stopping distances. We take it for granted that motorways are our safest roads, and so therefore we perhaps take more risk with speed than we should. I do think we need more enforcement, and we need to make sure that we are sort of sticking within the law. If we're going to have the law at 70, then we need to stick within it.
Right, Rebecca, thank you very much indeed. Well, Rebecca Ashton there from Road Smart, and she thinks we should basically keep within the law, and I do understand that argument and why she makes it. I think we need to have a lot more latitude. I think conditions vary. I drive in France a lot, and in France there's a 130 km/h limit, which is about 82, 83. But if it's raining hard, they reduce it to 110. That seems to me to be actually rather sensible, that the speed limit adjusts according to what the conditions are. And I think the police should operate with discretion on this. Clearly, if motorways are crammed, if it's busy inside towns, you've got to enforce some kind of limit. But the thought we should all be driving, into London, in lit areas, focused on that speedo, to make sure we're not doing 31, to the, frankly, pushing aside all the other risks there may be, strikes me as being nuts. That's what I think. What do you think? What does John from Limehouse, a new caller to the show, think? John, good evening.
Hello, Nigel. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Nigel, these speed cameras and speeds. I'm a professional lorry driver.
Okay.
Transport for London want to bring the speed limits into London 20 miles per hour. I agree. Speed limits, cameras are placed in areas of danger for a reason, to capture people who are speeding. Now, you can drive your car at 18 miles per hour. If you impact a child at 18 miles per hour, you can kill that child with internal injuries.
Well, then why not ban... Well, John, why not ban cars completely then in London?
There's no point in banning cars.
Well, then...
I've always said that for years, but...
So at what speed, John, at what speed would impacting a child cause no problem at all?
No, there isn't. There's no...
Well, there we are.
Impacting the child at 18 miles per hour will kill a child with internal injuries. Now, cameras set up around London, I strongly believe that there should be more cameras and there shouldn't be any warning signs when you're approaching the camera.
Right, so we're driving along, there's no warning sign, we see the camera at the last minute and we slam our foot on the brakes. Is that good for road safety?
No, of course it isn't, because if somebody keeps their safe distance behind you, then they're not going to pay a shin to the back of you. But, if you're caught speeding with the camera, then, you've broken the law. It's pretty simple, really, isn't it?
So, John, you really think that a 20 mph limit within our city makes sense?
Well, Nigel, I can get on a push bike, and at the busiest time of during the peak period of London traffic, I can go on a push bike from, say, Canary Wharf. I can get to Heathrow Airport faster than a car on a push bike. In a busy time, yes? Yes. Everybody knows this, right? So if people keep to a sensible speed, Transport for London has studied this for a lot of years now. Well, they want to bring the speed limits down to 20 miles per hour. I'm quite suspicious of experts, John, I've got to tell you, but rather like Michael Gove. But John, okay, if the argument is that around school time or whatever it is, we need to reduce speed because there's a genuine risk to kids running about roads and all. Do you know what? I'm happy to buy into that. What I'm not happy to buy into is that at 2 o'clock in the morning, driving into London, we should observe a 20-mile-an-hour limit. Yeah, but Nigel, London is a busy place. We all know it is, right? You know it is. Central London, 24 hours a day is busy. All of these Uber drivers, for example, they're picking up fares every day and every night of the week. people are wandering the streets of London 24 hours a day. It doesn't make any sense to bring in times. Oh, by the way, my wife is a big fan of yours.
Okay, very good. Well, give her my love. John, I just don't agree with you. I think the law needs to have discretion. I think the French motorways point a sensible way forward on this. As I say, they have well, as you well know as a lorry driver, you know, for cars, it's 130 km/h in reasonable conditions. It's 110 when it's wet or icy and dangerous. And I just John, I just can't buy into the fact that you should be done doing 22 miles per hour if this new rule comes in at 2 o'clock in the morning on a pretty big road coming into London.
How else are people going to learn? You can do these speed awareness courses, all right?
I've done one,
Yeah, I've done one myself, all right? But at the end of the day, people will still get in their cars and, perhaps, through lack of concentration, they're still going to speed. Or some people would be stupid enough to carry on with the same old habits they had in the first place and continue speeding.
And John, lastly, can I ask you, as somebody that does a lot of miles, how many miles a year do you drive?
Oh, bless me. I don't know, maybe 3,000 kilometres a week.
Okay, that's a lot of driving.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot. So in English, that's about 2,000 miles, isn't it? I mean, it's a lot of driving. Yeah. And you obviously spend a lot of time on the motorways. Do you think the 70 mph limit makes sense in the modern day?
For cars, no, I really don't. But with speed limits on motorways, I think there should be more training made available for car drivers.
Because there's none, is there?
Well, I mean, I'm speaking as a lorry driver.
Yeah.
I drive my car on the motorways, of course, as well.
Yeah.
But there should be more training for motorways. Motorways are the safest roads in the country.
Yeah, stats prove that. That's right. Yeah.
But there should be more training made available to them.
John, I thank you for calling. And John says more flexibility for cars on motorways. He actually believes the speed limit in central London and big cities should come down to 24 hours a day. I fundamentally disagree with him, but we had a polite conversation. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusive in LBC. It's now 7:16.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Parents who sign for mobile phone contracts on behalf of their children are liable for any sexting images. A senior detective said police could then raid family homes and seize computers and phones, and parents could be arrested.
So we were very torn between really telling him off, which obviously we did, but also having a level of understanding as well. He was really upset but understood, but 4 months later he did it again.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
Steering wheel tappers, the 10 and 2s, Sunday drivers and dislikers of queues, beaded chairs, boombox boots, school runners and dashboard drummers, the singers, the seat adjusters, even the sat-nav addicts.
Take the next left.
At Esso, we notice every detail. Whatever type of driver you are, remember to scan your Tesco Club card when you fill up at Esso. Esso. Energy lives here. For more information, visit esso.co.uk.
This week at Tesco, crates of Foster's, Strongbow, Carling and Coors Light are only £9. Tesco. Every little helps. Selected stores excluding Express while stocks last 18 plus ends 6 February.
Ever crossed your fingers and searched online for a local tradesperson? And if they turned up, fixed the problem, and didn't let you down, what a hero. Well, now you can uncross your fingers, because localheroes.com has taken the look out of finding a tradesperson. There's no call-out charge, and all work comes with a 12-month British Gas guarantee. So, whatever the job, there's a local hero for that. localheroes.com.
Journey's End is the movie that critics adore, calling it emotionally charged Great British drama.
We won't last 5 minutes if the Germans attack.
This First World War epic is extremely powerful.
You think there's no limit to what about compare?
Based on R.C. Sheriff's award-winning play and best-selling book, with an all-star British cast, including Sam Claflin, Asa Butterfield, Toby Jones, and Paul Bettany.
I need to come through this, so we stick at it.
Don't miss Journey's End, in cinemas February 2nd.
Are estate agents revolting? At eMove we are really revolting. We're revolting and revolutionising to create an easier and fairer way to sell your home. We're calling it an e-movement, combining the benefits and savings of online with real dedicated property experts at every step of your sale. Revolt with us. Join the e-movement. Visit emove.co.uk. Rated the UK's #1 hybrid estate agent on all agents.
We've been thinking about pruning. Not your peonies or your privet, but your cost of living. And how, from broadband to mobile phones, these days we're all looking for ways to trim our spending. And then we thought, couldn't we help you cut back on your biggest outgoing? And we thought, yes, we could. So we'll always try to help you remortgage to a better rate and save on your monthly repayments. Mortgages for how life is now. NatWest. We are what we do.
Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
Don't miss Oak Furnitureland's up to 50% off winter sale. And for today only, there are amazing month-end deals. With low prices and our vast range of furniture styles for every room in your home, you'll be amazed at the choice. With over 90 stores to choose from, go online now to find a store near you. Hurry, the Oak Furnitureland month-end deals finish today.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Well, as a police chief constable says, all tolerance should end. Anybody caught doing 31 miles per hour should be in for a penalty of some kind. I'm asking you whether you think that is right. And the concept of 20 MPH zones in town centres has come up already. Darren on Facebook says 20 MPH in town centres makes good sense. Hugh says fining people for doing 1 mile over the limit is crazy. In Edinburgh, there are 20 MPH limits all over, and it's a complete joke. Much of the city's come to a halt, and pollution levels are skyrocketing. All you're doing is looking at the speedo instead of looking at the road. Hugh, absolutely the point that I'm making, which strikes me is very much more dangerous. Now, Brighton and Hove in East Sussex, the first Green Council in this country, they introduced a 20 MPH zone within Brighton, not just during the busy times of the day, but during the night as well. And it actually reached the point of farce where the Sussex police decided they simply weren't going to enforce the bylaw that had been brought in. And I'm going to go and make this argument again, that I think rules and laws like this need to be exercised with discretion. The police should use discretion. The law is the law, you may argue. I would think we need a bit more flexibility from it. That's how I feel about this. Ellie is a new caller from Croydon. Good evening, Ellie.
Hi, Nigel.
So, if you're doing 31, Ellie, tomorrow morning, should you be stopped?
No, I agree with the vast majority of what you said. I mean, I often question the accuracy of my own speedo, let alone the accuracy of the equipment they've got measuring my speed. I mean, we've got a few on the way to where I live. We've got a few cameras set up at the moment that are monitoring speed for potential speed cameras to be put in. So that flashes up whatever speed you're doing. I know on my speedo, yes, I'll be speeding. It will be a 30. I'll be doing 40. Hands up, I'm awful for it. But then the camera will register that I'm doing 34. So am I doing 34? Am I doing 40? Well, if that can't even give me an accurate speed, how can the police?
Well, Ellie, I think you'll find that most manufacturers agree that their speedos are accurate to within 7%. All right? And my argument is, Ellie, if on that road where you naughty woman, are driving at 40, because it's 3:30 in the morning, and apart from the odd fox, there's nobody out there, which is why this law needs discretion. But the point is, if the limit was 30, you would be looking at your blooming speedo.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for every moment feeling resentful at how ridiculous this law was.
Oh, completely, absolutely. Like, there's nothing worse at the moment being on a 40 road with somebody going slowly in front of you. That kind of makes you... That's a really annoying situation to be in. And I think slow drivers are really dangerous.
Ellie, you and I are in exactly the same camp on this. Whether we're a minority or majority, I don't know. But I'm like you. I want to get on with life. How do you get on with motorways? Do you drive much on motorways?
I drive a lot on the motorways. I completely agree with you. There needs to be more leeway and flexibility with it. I mean, I personally like what you said about France. I think they've got a really good idea. But at the same time, like Germany, on their autobahns, no speed limits, hardly any accidents.
Well,
I'm not saying no. I'm not saying that's a good idea. I'm not saying we should go that far, because you're going to have that level of trust that people are going to not be ridiculous, and you know what.
But no, you're right, Ellie. There are unrestricted parts of the motorways in Germany, and I've been on those motorways, and suddenly there's a Porsche in the rearview mirror, and suddenly it's coming past at 150 miles an hour, and me being really irresponsible and not as environmentally friendly as I should be, think, wow, that looks like fun. But of course, if they do have an accident on those motorways at those speeds, they are going to be fatal, and probably not just to the driver, to other other innocent people as well. But no,
no doubt it would be catastrophic should anyone crash at that sort of speed. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, Ellie, I would bring the speed limit on motorways to 80 miles per hour, up from 70 miles per hour immediately, but very, very happy during congested and busy times for, a big sign to say 60 or 70 or whatever it is, and that to me would make a lot of sense.
Oh, I completely agree with you. I mean, at the moment, I don't know if you drive on M25 often. I'm very sorry for you if you do.
Oh, it's horrible.
Worst road. So how often will you be driving down the M25 and it's busy, so they have variable speed limits?
Yes, and you know what? Actually, I don't really have a problem with that.
No, because they're going to be there for a reason. I'm approaching traffic. They're slowing us down. It's for everyone's safety.
And I
don't see that being an issue.
I drove yesterday morning, Ellie. I drove on the M25 yesterday morning between 4 and 4:45 in the morning. There were a few lorries, and they didn't have those, limiters up. But equally, on a big 3 and in many parts 4-lane motorway, engineered to an incredible standard, I thought yesterday morning this limit of 70 is totally ludicrous for these conditions, given that it was brought in over 40 years ago. It was done to reduce fuel consumption, of course, but actually our cars, our brakes and everything. Ellie, you and I are in the same club. We want to get on with life. I thank you very much indeed for your call. I don't agree, Nigel. 30 miles an hour is the law. Nothing over should be allowed. The law is the law and should be respected, is what Kathy tells me by text. Kathy, if you're right, we will all spend the rest of our lives looking at the speedo, whether it's 20 or 30. In fact, thinking about it, any of you that own your own cars out there, you'll never get out of second gear if you're driving in a city, which of course means that fuel consumption actually will be higher and pollution will be worse. But perhaps no one thought about that as we move into this new age of Puritanism, where everything is to be banned, fun is not to be had, and nobody can break the law in any way at all. Gosh, what fun it's going to be for my kids as they grow older. Phil is a new caller from Coventry. Good evening, Phil.
Hello, Nigel. You all right?
Oh, yeah, I'm all right. Phil, all I'm asking for, and by the way, I'm not being irresponsible. I'm not arguing for people to go bombing round, in towns and cities at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm just saying there needs to be some flexibility. I'm worried, Phil, we'll all be obsessed with our speedos.
I think most of the points you've made are pretty spot on. You've stolen my thunder a little bit. I was ringing in to say I'm actually a test driver. For quite a big car company here in Coventry.
Well, Phil, I haven't stolen your thunder. I'm a pure amateur, just stabbing in the dark. So come on.
You stole my thunder.
Come on. You as an expert, the listeners will ignore everything I've said, as they generally do, and they're going to listen to you as an expert.
Oh, we'll see. You did mention the speedos on cars, and that manufacturers claim their speedos are within a certain % accurate.
Yeah.
Well, as part of my test, when we do a lot of the tests on the test tracks, we have to do them at an exact speed, and we can't trust the speedos. We have to actually compare the speedos to GPS to see how far out the speedos are. And I can tell you that the vast majority of speedos in cars are not accurate, and you could find yourself speeding quite easily without knowing that you're speeding, especially by 1 or 2 mile an hour. So to say that you should be done for doing 1 or 2 mile an hour over the limit is just ridiculous. Even if you just change the height of your seat in your car, that changes your angle at how you're looking at the speedo, and it could look like a different speed to someone who's a bit shorter sat in the same car.
Yeah. So, Phil, what would you estimate, on a bad day with certain models of car, and I won't ask you who you work for, obviously, otherwise they'll sack you, but what would you estimate that percentage variance could be?
I've seen cars that are almost 15%.
Wow.
Yeah, now that's a rarity. I would say the majority of cars are probably 5 to 6% out.
Okay.
But I have seen them as bad as 15%.
Okay. So basically, this chief constable is trying to make us all obsessed with speedos that aren't right anyway, that will take our attention and focus off the road and what's ahead. I mean, the chap's really lost his marbles, hasn't he?
I think you've got it spot on, yeah.
Right, very, very good. Phil, thank you. First time caller to the show. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you. And I hope that nobody at work recognises your voice tomorrow morning. So Phil there, a test driver for a big car company, saying 5 to 6% inaccuracy is pretty standard. I used the figure up to 7 earlier on in the show, but he's also saying it can be as much as 15%. And that's on brand new motor cars, let alone old motor cars. Simon is calling from Rugeley and Staffs. Good evening, Simon.
Good evening, Nigel. I just wanted to add to the conversation that training plays a big part of it, because speed and safety are very much mutually exclusive. You know, you can absolutely have a fast, safe driver, and you can absolutely have a slow, dangerous driver. So I don't think beating people into submission with more fines or anything is the solution. Once again, it should be education rather than punishment.
Yes, accidents, Simon, are caused by human error. And your point about speed's a very good one, because actually the safest place to drive in this country still is on the motorways, isn't it?
Well, that's because you will always have the slowest collisions on a motorway, because if you think about it, if someone going 70 hits someone going 50, it's a 20-mile-an-hour collision, whereas on a 60-mile-an-hour road with people coming the other way, that's 120-mile-an-hour.
Yeah. No, that's...
So it's a massive... So that's why it's the most safe road.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So, Simon, what would you say? What would you say to Chief Constable Anthony Bangham, who wants to be absolutely literal on 21 miles an hour, 31 miles per hour, 71 miles per hour?
Well, I'd say the tolerances of speeds, like the last caller said, of speedos, comes into play, and you could never do that, because 10% is there for a reason, because cars aren't the same. With the motorways, I would absolutely go 70, 80, 90 for the lanes, because it's close to what people do anyway.
Oh, what exactly?
And they are the safest roads, so there's no problem putting it up a bit, especially with modern tech, so that's what I'd say.
No, Simon, I'm with you, and we are actually ignoring this motorway speed limit of 70 in good conditions, and there's an old saying, isn't there, that if laws become enemies of men, men become enemies of laws. Thank you, Simon. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's now 7:30, and time for the news with Thomas Watts.
A prisoner's been stabbed to death at Wormwood Scrubs Jail in West London. Police were called just after 3 o'clock, but it's not thought any arrests have been made. The government will release leaked documents in full which suggest Brexit will be damaging to the economy. MPs will be allowed to look at the analysis in a reading room after the government didn't oppose a Labour motion calling for its publication. The outsourcing firm Capita's seen shares fall to a 15-year low after a profits warning. Its new chief executives admitted group structure has become far too complex. LBC weather, cold with some strong winds and wintry showers tonight. The heaviest rain in the northwest and in Scotland, a low of 3 degrees.
LBC Travel, heading into Stratford away from the Blackwall Tunnel approach road. There was an accident earlier. That's been moved out of the way, but it's still fairly busy. Goldhawk Road in Shepherd's Bush remains closed either side of Goldhawk Road Station because of flooding, causing delays coming from the Holland Park roundabout. And King Street in Hammersmith is still closed, which isn't helping things. Fulham Road in Fulham remains shut either side of Stamford Bridge Stadium because of Chelsea's match. And because of the match at Wembley, long delays on the North Circular and an accident on Neasden Lane at the North Circular. LBC Travel, I'm Rhys Fuller.
This is LBC.
Alice has just got herself the cap and track tariff from E.ON, so she's got one less thing to think about.
Lovely.
Her energy costs are capped below the average market price. And if the market price goes down, hers will too.
Oh, that's the stuff.
Give yourself one less thing to think about. Discover the right E.ON tariff for you today. Search E.ON Energy now.
Residential customers only. Prices reviewed quarterly and based on Ofgem typical domestic consumption at medium use. Eligibility criteria apply.
This week at Tesco, crates of Foster's, Strongbow, Carling and Coors Light are only £9. Tesco. Every little helps. Selected stores excluding Express while stocks last 18 plus ends 6 February.
Creating a perfect holiday with Travel Republic is just like creating anything. You start off with the basics, like, I want a beach holiday. Then you add a little more. A 4-star hotel. Then you add a few more flourishes. Near the beach, a local restaurant, flights from your favourite airport, and it's all been reviewed by people like you. And before you know it, you've made something really special. Book your perfect holiday. Search Travel Republic now. Travel Republic. Yours for the making. At all protected.
With the Volvo V40, you can have a perfect journey every time. Take the quickest route with navigation and real-time traffic information. Create your ideal soundtrack with internet radio. Stay stress-free with cruise control. And park effortlessly with rear park assist. With monthly rentals of £199, the Volvo V40 T2R Design Nav Plus has everything you need to make your journey perfect.
2-year personal contract hire agreement. Initial rental £2,500. Volvo Car Financial Services. Offer ends March 31st. Subject to status. Mileage and return conditions apply. 18s or over, you will not own the car. Guarantee may be required. Visit volvocars.co.uk for more details.
Take a test drive today at your local Volvo retailer. Volvo, human made.
Even if you only employ one person, you have to provide a workplace pension. It's the law. Get to know your responsibilities with help from the pensions regulator. Visit workplacepensions.gov.uk.
We've been thinking about the nuclear family, that vision of mum, dad and their 2.4 children, and how times have changed. How we're now living longer and our kids are leaving home later. So we thought, with all this change, shouldn't we change the way we think about mortgages? So we now cater for all types of family and are trying to turn Generation Rent into Generation Buy. Mortgages for how life is now. NatWest. We are what we do.
Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
Ever crossed your fingers and searched online for a local tradesperson? And if they turned up, fixed the problem, and didn't let you down, what a hero. Well, now you can uncross your fingers, because localheroes.com has taken the look out of finding a tradesperson. There's no call-out charge, and all work comes with a 12-month British Gas guarantee. So, whatever the job, there's a local hero for that. localheroes.com.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
We're talking speed limits, and should they be literal? Should you, at 31 mph and a 30, be subject to a fine or a police awareness course? But, lots going on in Westminster today. Theo Usherwood, our political editor, joining us. Theo, fill us in on Westminster news. Bring us up to speed, as it were.
Nigel, it has been a very, very busy day. Theresa May, the Prime Minister, of course, has been in China, banging the drum for British business, meeting leaders there, well, political leaders as well as business leaders. So it was left to her deputy, David Lidington, the Europhile Europe Minister, former Europe Minister and now Cabinet Office Minister, to stand in. And he faced Emily Thornberry, the Shadow Foreign Secretary, who had the better of him in the first exchanges.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me start by welcoming the Minister back to his role deputising for the Prime Minister. Last time he did so was in December 2016, when his party was 17 points ahead in the polls, and he told the House that the Labour Party was, I quote, quarrelling like the film Mutiny on the Bounty, reshot by the team who made Carry On. Well, what a difference a year makes!
Thornberry went Nigel.
she's very pleased with herself, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was. She enjoys it, and she's got Damien McBride, who of course did PMQs for Gordon Brown when he was Prime Minister, by her side, giving her all the quips and jokes as well. She concentrated not just on Tory turmoil, but on the issue of votes for 16, because of course Labour very keen to get those teenagers voting, and they think it could be especially important in constituencies where they could come through and obviously go on to be students as well. So that was the focus. It was then over to David Lidington. He actually did quite well, and then however there was this slip up when he made this remark towards Miss Thornberry.
The situation we have here, Mr. Speaker, with the national voting age at 18 is one that is followed by 26 out of the 27 other members of the European Union, by the United States, Canada, New Zealand and Australia. Unless she is going to denounce all of those countries as somehow inadequate to her own particular standards, then quite honestly, Mr. Speaker, I wish she ought to grow up and try and treat this subject with a greater degree of seriousness.
That was literally, Nigel, the last thing that Mr. Lidington said, but he was slapped down by Theresa May's spokesman, who said that the Prime Minister would not have used the phrase "grow up" had she been in the House of Commons instead of her deputy. And of course, a lot of the focus today has been on this so-called impact assessment. And I think, I don't know what your reading of it would be, but this was a real bazooka in the armoury of the Remainers, these so-called impact assessments. But yesterday, Steve Baker really did put on a show in the House of Commons and denounce, the economic forecasters, all those who said that it was going to be doom and gloom if we left the European Union. And now the government's feeling much more confident today and actually said that it would be prepared to release the full statements because, of course, the full assessments, because, of course, it was only a draft that came out yesterday. Mr. Baker, for his part, was unapologetic.
I have relied on arguments which I have made for many years in this House, for the whole period that I have been here, whether in this chamber or in the Treasury Select Committee, and I certainly do not resile from what I've said. My honourable friend for Dover picked up on the theme about uncertainty. The point here is not to rubbish all analysis. It is to do what I suggested at the end of my remarks yesterday. It is to ensure that we have a healthy scepticism in this chamber for reports, for analysis of economics.
To give you an idea, Nigel, about where the balance of power is in the Conservative Party between Leavers and Remainers, Philip Lee, who is a junior Justice Minister, said that the government needed to listen to those impact assessments and take on board what they had to say, and was immediately hauled in front of the Chief Whip, Julian Smith, to have his wrist slapped and told that in future he should keep his views to himself.
Why don't they just split, Theo? I mean, they're almost like two different parties melded into one, really, aren't they?
Yes, and then finally the drama today, and from what I understand he has still resigned, was the Department for International Development Minister, Lord Bates. He had resigned before, of course, to walk from Buenos Aires to Rio de Janeiro, former Home Office Minister, but then he went into DFID, and he was 2 minutes late. Bless him, he was 2 minutes late to answer a question in the House of Lords, and he thought it was such a bad sin that he needed to walk again.
Good Lord. Well, I must say, the idea of somebody in the House of Lords resigning on principle is a very good one. Well done, Lord Bates. I hope about 500 more follow him very, very quickly. Theo, thank you very much for the roundup. Back to speeding. Nigel, look at the technology in car brakes now. The speed limits were introduced when cars were very basic. The whole speed limit system needs to be updated to bring it into the modern age, says Dave in Lowestoft. And Dave, I absolutely agree with that, which does not mean we want people driving quickly around schools in the morning and the afternoons and all the rest of it. And the other big event that took place yesterday, of course, was Donald Trump had his first State of the Union speech. He was delivering a message of unity. A speech that lasted an astonishing 1 hour and 20 minutes. The president, of course, took credit for a growing economy, but his ultimate message was to bring America together.
All of us together as one team, one people, and one American family can do anything. We all share the same home, the same heart, the same destiny, and the same great American flag. There has never been a better time to start living the American dream. So to every citizen watching at home tonight, no matter where you've been or where you've come from, this is your time. If you work hard, if you believe in yourself, if you believe in America, then you can dream anything. You can be anything. And together, we can achieve absolutely anything.
That is kind of positive, upbeat stuff, isn't it? And the response to it in America is pretty astonishing. A CBS News poll said among speech watchers, 75% approved. And asked whether the policies that had been heard will help you, 54% said yes. Only 14% thought Trump's policies would hurt them. The rest didn't know. So suddenly, this president, who has had to endure a lot of abuse, suddenly he's breaking into new territory. And I have had the feeling all the way through that there was a lot more to Trump than maybe what people first saw on the surface. And you may well say to me, Nigel, how on earth can he, of all people, speak in a way about bringing people together? But you know what? He's doing it, and the polls say people really, really like it. Kim is calling me from Herne Bay in Kent. She's a new caller to the show. So, Kim, do you ever drive at more than 30 miles per hour in a 30?
Nigel, I'm going to get beaten up here, I know, tremendously, but I've got to have a go at trying to get you to change your view.
Go on, then.
You are asking turkeys to vote for Christmas, Nigel, with this.
Right, well, I'm quite good at that, but go on.
Nobody in the world is going to want this policy to be implemented. But I've got to say to you, Nigel, you mentioned about the policy on the French roads. It only applies to the motorways, whereby rainy weather and good weather, there's a variance in them. We have that in the UK in the sense that variable speed limits. I must be the only driver on the road at times that is complying with these things. Yes, I am a driver trainer. I'm a professional driver. I teach and help other people to obtain different licenses and things like that. So, of course, I do, yes. I mean, I used to participate in speed awareness courses, and people always used to say at the end of it, when they were feeling relaxed, going back towards the end, "Well, but you don't always drive like this." Of course I bloody well do. But it's much more difficult to drive legally than it is just to go tear-assing down the road. You're talking about cars. You've emphasised this issue of cars at 2 o'clock in the morning in a 30 zone.
Absolutely, Kim.
Fine. We can't implement what we're doing. How do we implement all these various things you're suggesting? Because I would introduce another thing. What about the guys in the lorries? What about the people with the big tow vehicles and big trailers on the back? The implications of exceeding 30 miles an hour in a small car are one thing, but what about if you're in a HGV, a bus, a coach?
Well, Kim, this debate is about cars. I haven't got into the technicalities of HGVs or...
No, but it embraces it, which is why the authorities are talking about it. It's a limit.
Kim, Kim, you've come on LBC to get me to change my point of view, because you think I'm just an irresponsible, outdated dinosaur. Okay, fine. Convince me that when I'm driving, I mean, okay, very close to you is the Thanet Way, right? A very, very good, modern, dual carriageway, built to incredibly high engineering standards. I'm sure with that you would agree. Why on earth, if I'm driving down there at 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's literally nothing on the road, should I stick to 70 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour, depending which bit I'm on?
Because we are not Terminators, Nigel. Our mind wanders. And we do not concentrate on the road sufficiently. Things build up in front of us and we react. We are not proactive. And whether you are driving at 2 o'clock in the morning, then you have all the other things about... I'm not scientific about these things, about the body clock and the lows and highs with your cycle and so forth. But
hang on, Kim. You'll ban me driving at night next. You'll ban me driving at night next.
No, not at all. People work. Look at the lorry drivers. But they're regulated in the sense that they have a tachograph in there to sort of watch what they're doing with their speeds, although you have to ask yourself, and you know, Kent, you see people going in these big trucks at enormous speeds, well in excess of the speed limit, so you have to ask how much that's enforced. Speed, if you ever got experts talking to you about this, they'll tell you that speed is not necessarily the issue when it comes to the incident. It's all the other driving behaviours. We drive too close, we don't concentrate.
Yes, Kim, I agree with you, which is why I'm saying that to be absolutist about 30 in a 30 mph and to get drivers focusing on the speedo to the exclusion of other things they should be looking at and thinking about is a mistake. Speed surely actually causes a much smaller percentage of the 1,700 road deaths every year in this country than almost all the other factors.
I work with people and I cannot believe the response I get from people when I highlight the fact that they're in excess of the speed limit. What does it matter? It's almost more people will break the speed limit than will vote in a bloody Brexit election or a general election, because it is just totally...
Doesn't that tell you, Kim, we might have... Doesn't it tell you, Kim, we might just have the limits wrong?
No, we don't, Nigel.
All right, Kim,
not.
I've got to leave it there. You've made your point with great passion, great conviction. I'm quite prepared to accept that in many, many instances you may well be right and I may well be wrong, but hey, I think what I think. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's 7:47.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
Shares in outsourcing firm Capita have plunged almost 50%. Is it time to stop putting public services in the hands of private companies?
Clive Bull on LBC.
What's down the back of your sofa? Half a pretzel? That long-lost TV remote? But what if you found a wad of cash? Now we're talking. Or what about a goose that lays golden eggs? It's nice to get more than you expected. New Euro Millions Hot Picks from the National Lottery. Pick and match 3 balls and win £1,500. Play every Tuesday and Friday. Prizes are fixed, subject to capping. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
We've been thinking about pruning. Not your peonies or your privet, but your cost of living. And how, from broadband to mobile phones, these days we're all looking for ways to trim our spending. And then we thought, couldn't we help you cut back on your biggest outgoing? And we thought, yes, we could. So we'll always try to help you remortgage to a better rate and save on your monthly repayments. Mortgages for how life is now. NatWest. We are what we do.
Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
GCSEs, A-levels.
For exam success without the stress, only one name stands out. Justin Craig. A Justin Craig Easter course kickstarts revision, consolidates knowledge, boosts confidence and improves exam technique. With over 30 years experience, Justin Craig has helped more than 100,000 students secure their university place. For Easter revision course details, visit justincraig.ac.uk. Justin Craig. Just in time.
I know who designed Princess Di's wedding dress. I know who phoned home. I know how to do a silly walk. And I know which part of the room you should never put baby in. But I don't know my state pension.
Find out how much you could get and when you can claim it. Get to know your pension. Visit yourpension.gov.uk.
Ever crossed your fingers and searched online for a local tradesperson? And if they turned up, fixed the problem, and didn't let you down, what a hero. Well, now you can uncross your fingers, because localheroes.com has taken the look out of finding a tradesperson. There's no call-out charge, and all work comes with a 12-month British Gas guarantee. So, whatever the job, there's a local hero for that. localheroes.com.
Are you stuck in a whale's blowhole? No? Great! Then why not use Yopa to sell your home? With Yopa, you get your own dedicated local estate agent using the latest technology to give you a totally personal service. And all for a low fixed fee from £839. You'd need a ruddy good reason not to. Oh no! Not again! Book a free valuation of your home at yopa.co.uk. Yopa, seriously. Why not? Higher London fee, terms apply.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
I take the view that to enforce speed limits literally, so that if you're 1 mph above a 20, 30 or 70 or 50 or 60 limit, I think it's nuts. But lots of you think the law's the law, and hey, driving can be very dangerous, and that's what we need to do. And on a driving-related issue, as the new Puritanism sweeps our country, we learn today that the Formula One grid girls are all to lose their jobs. That's right, they're all to be sacked. And there's a very interesting response from Lauren Jade, and she appeared on This Morning, and she says this: because of these feminists, they've cost us our jobs. I've been a grid girl for 8 years, and I've never felt uncomfortable. I love my job. If I didn't, I wouldn't do it. No one forces us to do this. This is our choice. Well, I'm very sorry, Lauren, but you've lost your job. And the darts girls have also lost their jobs. And all of this because a handful of drunken, excessive city people behave loutishly at a stag dinner. And because of that, we are to tell thousands of women that they are going to lose their jobs. Nobody can be pretty. No doubt pretty women will be banned from adverts in future, and Oliver Cromwell will be back in charge of the country. It is madness in my view. But back to speed limits and how they should be applied. Lucy is a new caller from Redditch in Worcestershire. Lucy, good evening.
Hi, yeah. My brother was actually killed by a speeding driver in a hit and run 3 years ago.
Was he a pedestrian or a driver, or...?
He was a pedestrian. The driver was speeding really excessively at 93 miles an hour in a 40 mile an hour zone.
Oh, gosh.
But sort of giving out the message that going at 1 or 2 miles over is okay actually undermines the fact that speeding is illegal. 30 miles is the limit because that's what a life can be saved at. If you're hit at 30 miles, you've got a good chance of surviving. As soon as you start creeping up even a mile or two, it gets harder and it just undermines the message. We're so kind of lackadaisical about speeding in this country. It's not seen as an offence, and it is. It takes lives. It destroyed my family.
Well, Lucy, that's an horrendous story, but clearly somebody doing 93 miles per hour in a 40, we're talking about a whole different thing here.
In today's society, we all want to get somewhere fast, and we're not sort of caring for others. A mile or two, just slow down, think about other people using the road. If it takes you 5 minutes longer on the journey, does it really matter if people are safe?
Let me give you, Lucy... And what happened to your brother was, clearly criminal, appalling, awful behaviour, and I'm very, very sorry. But let me give you a counter-argument in terms of safety. I was hit by a car. I was hit by a car in November 1985. It was a wet, rainy night. It was a Pelican crossing. I maybe had crossed a little later than I should with the bleep, and a car was coming up the road. I was wearing a dark overcoat. The car didn't see me. I was hit. They think the car was doing about 28 to 30 miles per hour. I was in hospital for 4 months. Very, very lucky to survive. Mm-hmm. Lucy, my point is that was a 30 mph road, albeit with that crossing. If drivers on that road were so obsessed with looking at their Speedo that they weren't looking for pedestrians going across the road, I worry that obsessing with the Speedo, because we enforce this limit literally, will mean more people get hit, Lucy.
I don't go over the speed limit, and I don't look at my speedometer all the time. I don't know why people act like it's so difficult to
How would you know, Lucy?
Within the speed limit. Because, I've never ever been fined, I've never been caught, I've never had a problem. It's, 30 miles is the upper limit. Just stay within it. Why is it so hard? Why does everybody act like, oh my God, you're asking the world of me just to obey the law? If it was your loved one that was killed, it would be very different.
Lucy, I understand that argument, but your loved one wasn't killed by somebody doing 36 and a 30. Your loved one was killed by somebody who was criminal.
Because those few miles can make the difference.
So would you...
You survived your accident.
I was lucky. I was very lucky. Yeah.
5 or 10 miles more.
Yeah. No.
You might not have.
No, Lucy, I do know that. I understand that. I'm very fortunate to have, I still suffer from it every single day, but I got through it. I'm alive. And I was very, very fortunate. Would you, Lucy, approve, and many other callers and texters tonight would you approve of bringing a limit down to 20 in built-up areas?
Certainly in certain areas, yeah. I mean, you do see it now around schools and so on at certain times. That's sensible. But I think that there's a massive debate here on how we look at speeding as a crime. The sentencing on it isn't tough enough. Sentencing on death by dangerous driving isn't tough enough.
But that's a different thing, Lucy, isn't it? That is a different thing.
The whole view in society to when you get in a car and how you drive and what speed you go at, we just don't take it seriously enough, full stop.
Okay. Lucy, thank you for coming on and telling us your very sad story. Gary from Dartford is very cynical. He says, this is a move to raise more revenue from motorists. Well, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Why not look abroad? Nowhere else in Europe are there so many speed cameras as in the UK. Germany have often parts of motorways without any limit at all, and it's safer to drive there than it is here. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, one thing for certain, road deaths in this country are about a third of what they are in France. We have done remarkable work in bringing down road deaths, which 30, 40 years ago was 7,000 a year. It's now down to 1,700 a year. So big progress. My last caller tonight is Alex, another new caller of the show from Fleet in Hampshire. Alex, time is tight.
Hi, Nigel. Good to talk to you, mate. I just thought I'd shed a bit of light from a police perspective. I'm an ex-police officer, and I used to do specialised speed enforcement. And we, as police officers, could do people in a 30 at 31. there's no regulation on us that we couldn't do that today.
Yeah.
So this 10% really, I think, applies more to cameras than police officers. If I saw, a clear road in the early hours of the morning, someone doing 34, 35 miles an hour, there's no way I would have pulled them over and used my common sense. But a camera won't. And this is where the problem is. If all the cameras are locked to 30, and like you say, you don't look down, you're doing 31, boom, 3 points, bang, there's a fine for you. Your insurance goes up for years. And this is where what bothers me. And the police officers on the road have been reduced so much over the years. It's very rare you've got police officers doing speed enforcement anymore. It's all cameras now.
Yeah, and Alex, I hate cameras, and you've made the point beautifully. There's a total lack of discretion, and you as a police officer use discretion. Alex, I am sorry that we're out of time. I'd like to have done a lot more with you about motorways and all the rest of it, but as it is, we have run out of time. Thank you for a great debate and at times a very emotional debate. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'm back tomorrow night at 7. At 10 o'clock tonight, it's Ian Collins, but up next, it's Clive Bull.
Nigel, thank you.